Chapter 21. Catch me if you can. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course, this mysterious man in black was Zhang Lai. In truth, even Zhang Lai hadn't expected that the six clans would have been so interested in the Venombane Glade or the superior-grade Venombane Scorpion. Neither had he expected that their confrontation would be so hostile. From his perspective, however, any commotion was a good thing. Only when the gathered hunters stumbled over each other would he have the opportunity to steal the kill. If they had united or reached an agreement among themselves, Zhang Lai would have left immediately. The six most important clans in the Black Steel settlement had all gathered at the glade. Compared to them, the Zhang Lai of the present was nothing. Just exposing himself, let alone attempting to steal the superior-grade Scorpion's gene fragments and soul's heart, could land him in big trouble. But no reward came without risk. Superior gene fragments and the superior-grade Venombane Scorpion soul's heart were both excellent spoils. And since Zhang Lai had the opportunity to obtain both, he wouldn't give up so easily. He kept scattering more of his acid-green powder into the waterfall, until the surface of the pond began to froth violently. Then, he snuck toward the cave like a dark shadow. By this time, the battlefield had been divided into two factions. The first comprised the Yun and Chu elites, and the second the Qin, Zhou, Li, and Zhao elites. The two factions guarded against each other as they hunted for the superior-grade Scorpion. The abilities that it had demonstrated were far too enticing to give up. No hunter present failed to grasp the worth of its soul's heart. A tremendous stealth ability, an exceedingly dangerous beam attack, and lightning speed. No matter whether the soul's heart ended up being attack-type, augmentation-type, or illusion type, the hunter who claimed that soul's heart would receive a significant boost. After all, once hunters had filled up all their genes to capacity, what would differentiate them would be the quality and quantity of their soul shards. Furthermore, the gathered crowd of hunters still needed more superior gene fragments. The stronger a hunter was before ascending to a higher realm, the more the hunter would benefit from the ascension. As a result, they all wanted the superior-grade Scorpion for themselves. Suddenly, a drop of dark purple blood dripped down from the ceiling. The sound should have been easily drowned out by the hunters, but it seemed almost as loud as a cymbal amidst the tense atmosphere. A purple dot flashed past a Qin elite. "It's here." Almost immediately as he spoke, a whip of thunder crashed down beside him. A violent purple light erupted as it struck the Scorpion's carapace, blinding the hunters. When they blinked, the Scorpion had vanished once again. Of course, the hunter who had struck, with such speed and strength, was none other than Qin Shao. When he saw the Scorpion try to run away even after being struck by his whip of lightning, an electrifying storm of genetic energy swirled around him. Thunder God's domain. Blue lightning shot out of Qin Zhao's body in 100-meter radius around him. They were as fine and dense as silken threads, illuminating everything in sight. The moment the technique activated, Qin Zhao shot toward the southwest. There, he had seen the outline of a violet Scorpion skittering away. Attack! Just as Qin Zhao thought himself about to defeat the elusive prey, a shout shocked the gathered hunters into action. Propelled by a torrent of wind, an impenetrable cloud of mist was descending on him. Raiment of lightning. Chu Feng, you bastard! Thunderburst. Hymn of wind. As the wind and lightning attuned genetic energy clashed with each other, a cloud of billowing dust smothered the cave. The hunters from each clan began to fight with each other amidst the hordes of scorpions. As Qin Shao took on Chu Feng, gold, red, and black flashes emerged from within the cloudy mist. Yun Bing was being stalled by the combined might of the three corporations. Not only were Zhou Qian, Li Jin, and Zhao Jia the heads of the three corporations, they were also the top 10 hunters in the Black Steel settlement. The three of them, working together, could certainly counter Yun Bing. As the six clans began to fight among each other, the superior-grade Scorpion avoided death once again. Threatened, it no longer dared to remain in the heart of the battlefield, and it shot toward the empty cave tunnel like a beam of purple light. As it chittered, the tunnel began to fill with a horde of regular and mutated grade scorpions, ready to defend its leader. Stop fighting. It's going to get away. Chase after it. The 6 clans immediately halted their fight and rushed toward the cave entrance. However, just as the 6 clans began to act, the superior grade scorpion that had just rushed into the cave let out a despairing cry. It had been trapped within a white, sticky, translucent ball of some strange matter. As he crushed a mutated grade venombane scorpion souls hard, Zhang Lai struck the scorpion with 3 wave crescendo, successfully killing the battered superior grade scorpion. A royal purple souls hard condensed on its carapace, and Zhang Lai heard the will of the world once more. You successfully killed a superior grade venombane scorpion and obtained its souls hard. Zhang Lai. A mortal life form framework. Foundation, LV Max, 9 Carp Transformation, First Form. Carp. Genes. Basic, 140, Mutated, 90, Superior, 10 Soul Shards. White Grub, Superior, Gale Wolf, Mutated, Blood Ant, Mutated, Pot-Bellied Toad, Mutated, Venombane Scorpion, Superior, Success. In the dark cave, as he heard the will of the world's voice, Zhang Lai's heart began to palpitate. He grabbed the scorpion's carcass, stuffed it into his pot-bellied toad pouch, and began to flee. He certainly wasn't about to stay and wait for the 6 most influential clans of the Black Steel settlement to catch him. A kill. Stealer. The leaders of the Yun, Chu, Qin, Zhou, Li, and Zhao teams were all dumbstruck by what had happened. The moment the superior grade scorpion had rushed to the cave entrance, a burst of genetic energy had emanated from the cave. And with that burst went the life of the superior grade scorpion. How could they fail to understand what had happened? Honestly, if others were to know about what had happened here, all 6 clans would immediately become laughingstocks. They had gathered together to hunt rare prey, and despite their strength, that prey had ultimately been captured by a lone hunter. Their reputation would be in shambles. No, they had to catch that thief and retrieve the soul's heart he had stolen. It was this galvanizing force that caused the 6 clans to miraculously cooperate. Their leaders immediately stopped fighting and shot toward the fleeing thief. Chu Feng, his wings flapping behind him, flew over the scorpion hordes and into the cave like an eagle darting after its prey. The cave was exceptionally dark, and Zhang Lai was clad entirely in black. Chu Feng couldn't even see the barest silhouette of his body, but he could hear his footsteps. They were both moving extremely quickly, but Chu Feng had more superior gene fragments and higher quality techniques than Zhang Lai, so he was naturally faster. The distance between the 2 hunters was quickly decreasing. The waterfall was right ahead of them, but Chu Feng was accelerating faster and faster. 20 meters. 10. 5. Zhang Lai barely made it out of the cave, despite the howling wind behind him, and tossed a deep blue bead into the waterfall as he did so. Release. The bead burst apart as soon as it touched the water, freezing the waterfall and blocking the exit to the cave. Moments later, the frozen waterfall exploded. Chu Feng rushed out of the waterfall, waving shards of ice out of his hair, but there was no one in sight. Despite the deaths of many of his elites, the superior grade scorpion that he was hunting had been stolen by someone else. How could Chu Feng give up the chase so easily? He soared up into the night sky. Peering carefully below him, he dashed toward the barest hint of movement. A tremble of a tree branch. As he did so, flying above the moonlit pond, a sudden fear enveloped him. Beneath him, the moonlit pond started to froth, as though a life form was about to emerge from its depths. Recalling the legend of the moonlit pond, Chu Feng widened his eyes as he instinctively flung himself to one side. Blood spurted from his arm as a thin beam of water shot out from the pond, skirted by Chu Feng's left arm, and left a deep scar in the mountain behind him. The next moment, under Chu Feng's disbelieving gaze, a pure white WIRM emerged from the pond. Its scales gleamed like white jade, and a small horn protruded from its forehead. It seemed like a cross between a dragon and a snake, with a grace inherent to neither species. This was the legendary Moonlight WIRM. Chu Feng reared back in shock. The Moonlight WIRM was a creature of rumor and myth, so named by a hunter from the Black Steel settlement. Even the reincarnated Zhang Lai had no idea what manner of life form it really was. However, none of that was important. All Zhang Lai needed to know was how to lure it out from the depths of the pond, as well as how strong it was. By the waterfall, Yun Bing and Qin Xiao had just rushed out of the cave. They both sucked in a deep breath as they saw the WIRM emerging from the water. The genetic energy swirling around the WIRM was enough to shock them to stillness, especially Qin Xiao, who had once attempted to lure the creature out from the pond. Glancing at it now, he was thankful he didn't do so, or he would have undoubtedly perished for his stupidity. We have to flee, the same thought filled the heads of the three top hunters of the Black Steel settlement. Their desire to catch the fleeing thief had been dashed completely upon seeing the WIRM's head peeking out of the pond's surface. They immediately rushed back into the cave. However, right as they were about to head in, Zhou Qian rushed out, blocking their path forward with the rest of his team. "What's the matter? Why aren't you chasing the thief?" Chapter 22. Righteousness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Another arrow of water shot out of the pond with deceptively little sound. It moved so quickly that the gathered hunters had barely seen the skill activate before it reached them. The concentrated beam emanated such potent ice-attuned genetic energy that they recoiled in fear, and even Zhou Qian went silent. After all, they were all in the top 10 of the gene leaderboard, and their senses were developed enough to understand the potency of the attack. Zhou Qian now knew the reason for Chu Feng, Qin Xiao, and Yun Bing's sudden retreat. However, just because the hunters realized what was happening didn't mean that they were able to react in time. After all, the beam was so sudden that Zhou Qian was still thinking about how to give chase to the mysterious thief. Chu Feng and Yun Bing only hesitated momentarily before pushing him aside and rushing through the cave. As for Qin Xiao, instead of pushing him aside, he pushed him out. By the time Zhou Qian figured out what was going on, the orb of water was right before his eyes. Shield of gold, gate to oblivion, adamantine armor. With barely any hesitation, 3 defensive skills activated before him. But despite the triple-layered shield, Zhou Qian's body burst into a bloody mist. The orb of water, about as wide as a thumb, emerged from the mist and shot into the tunnel. "Help me, or we'll all perish!" Qin Xiao yelled. Lightning spear. Blade of the mists. Reaping wind. Yun Bing and Chu Feng had both begun to turn back by the time he shouted, and they all struck the orb with their fastest attacks. The best offense was also the best defense. They all saw what had happened to Zhou Qian, and none of them wanted to end up like him. With a gigantic tremor, the cave, and even the entire mountain, began to collapse under the combined force of the water orb and the 3 elemental attacks. Yun Bing, Chu Feng, Qin Xiao, and even Li Jin and Zhao Jia, who had just rushed into the cave, were all buried in the aftermath. From within the forest, Zhang Lai couldn't help shaking his head in amazement as he fled. It seemed as though this supposed Moonlight WIRM was the strongest and most mysterious existence in the First Realm, apart from the disaster-grade life form that would soon somehow make its way to the First Realm. Based on Zhang Lai's judgment, this Moonlight WIRM had likely broken past the limits of a superior-grade life form and had advanced to a peak-grade life form. How shocking that the will of the world hadn't forced it to ascend. It looked as though he would have to add it to his list of future targets. As he rushed back to the settlement, he made a few changes to his upcoming plans. Back in the pond, after the mountain's collapse, the WIRM ignored the fleeing ant-like existences that were now buried under tons of rock. It surveyed the boundary of the pond, sneezed in annoyance, and dove back into the depths amidst a chain of bubbles. After the WIRM left the scene, all sorts of cries began to emerge from the rock heap. As their subordinates watched on in shock, a massive rumble accompanied a sudden rockslide, and 5 battered silhouettes emerged from the rocks. Yun Bing, Chu Feng, Qin Xiao, Li Jin, and Zhao Jia. Master. Mistress. Head. As they emerged, their subordinates hurriedly rushed toward them. It was only close up that they saw just how battered the 5 of them were, especially Qin Xiao, covered in blood from head to toe, his left arm all but smashed to pieces. He stumbled, as though he would be unable to support his own weight and fall at any moment, causing his subordinates to gape in shock. Even Yun Bing and Chu Feng were bleeding from their mouths, as though they too had suffered grievous injuries. Despite not knowing what had happened, their subordinates immediately swarmed and protected them. The Zhou hunters, concerned about the disappearance of their leader, hurriedly crowded Li Jin and Zhao Jia's parties, asking for the whereabouts of Zhou Qian. Unfortunately, neither Li Jin nor Zhao Jia knew what was going on. They had just rushed into the cave when it exploded, and they had been buried alive with the others without knowing why or how. Qin Xiao, what happened back there? Where's Zhou Qian? Given their temporary alliance, the first person Li Jin asked about the situation was Qin Xiao. Qin Xiao's body trembled. After a momentary silence, he pointed toward Chu Feng and Yun Bing. He's dead, the Zhou Corporation head is dead. All because of them. Qin Xiao, don't you dare malign me. Qin Xiao's intentions were clear, and Chu Feng wasn't about to take the blame for Zhou Qian's death. Chu Feng, it was all your fault. You and Yun Bing pushed the Zhou clan head out of the tunnel, and he died from the Moonlight WIRM's attack. Qin Xiao's features had settled into a righteous rage as he pointed a finger at Chu Feng. Even a dozen Chu Fengs and Yun Bings would be no opponent for Qin Xiao's shamelessness. Not only had he tried to shift the blame, he had done so with such conviction. Yun Bing gaped as Chu Feng began to summon his last reserves of genetic energy. You're the one who pushed him out. If you're going to keep twisting the truth, I'll kill you now. Huh, Chu Feng, now that I've exposed the truth, you're trying to kill me. Li Jin, Zhao Jia, we were all attacked by a particularly dangerous life form in the tunnel, and these two pushed Zhou Qian out to cushion the attack and save their lives. I, Qin Xiao, gave my arm to save him, to no avail. What a tragedy it is that Zhou Qian's corpse was completely destroyed by the attack. If not for my life-threatening injuries, I'd duel scum like you to the death right now. You were the one who pushed him out to save your sorry life. Chu Feng was astounded at Qin Xiao's thick-skinned behavior. But before Chu Feng could argue with him, Qin Xiao suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood and fainted. Qin Xiao, you damn bastard, I know you're faking it. Chu Feng's mouth twitched as he howled at his old rival. He tried to be gentlemanly in all things, and it was a testament to Qin Xiao's behavior that Qin Xiao had managed to enrage him to such an extent. On the other hand, by his side, Yun Bing quickly recovered from her initial bout of shock. Qin Xiao's description of events had Li Jin, Zhao Jia, and the rest of the Zhou hunters looking toward Chu Feng and Yun Bing. Li Jin frowned and asked, Yun Bing, Chu Feng, don't you think you owe us an explanation for what happened tonight? Chu Feng was about to pull his hair out when Yun Bing, who had been silent, spoke up. Li Jin, Zhao Jia, as corporation heads, I'm sure you must be able to judge matters for yourselves, and I'm sure you understand what Qin Zhao's personality is like. Need I explain further? First, I, Yun Bing, swear by my name that Zhou Qian's death had nothing to do with either of us. As for the reason of death, Qin Xiao has already made an allegation against us. I won't refute it now, in case you think that I'm taking advantage of an unconscious person to shift all the blame onto him. Furthermore, if you do intend to blame us for Zhou Qian's death, then I, on behalf of the Yun clan, will take all of you on. However, I caution the two of you to tread carefully. To preserve your own autonomy, and not to be manipulated into a rash decision by someone else here. I, Chu Feng, agree with Yun Bing. The Yun and Chu clans will fight together. After Yun Bing had finished, Chu Feng, who had finally calmed down, immediately voiced his agreement. Li Jin and Zhao Jia glanced at each other. In the end, Li Jin spoke up. We three corporations will keep your words in mind. That being said, if our investigation reveals that Zhou Qian's death was caused by the two of you, we won't stop at anything to avenge Zhou Qian. Yun Bing smiled. I hope your investigation goes smoothly. I don't mind a challenge, but I don't intend to take the blame for someone else's actions. The Moonlight WIRM we fought has likely exceeded the boundaries of a superior-grade lifeform, so I caution you to be wary as you leave. Her final words caused a hush to descend among the gathered hunters. Beyond superior-grade. Didn't that mean that the Moonlight WIRM was a peak-grade lifeform? How could that be? Hadn't the World Federation indicated that the highest grade lifeform in the first realm would only be superior-grade? How could a peak-grade lifeform exist here? Danger and opportunity, all rolled up into one package. No wonder even the top hunters like Yun Bing, Chu Feng, and Qin Xiao would have ended up in such a battered state, and no wonder Zhou Qian had lost his life. Thank you for the information, Yun Bing. Li Jin's eyes sparkled with greed, clearly having been enticed by the prospect of hunting a peak-grade lifeform. Li Jin, let me reiterate. Do not provoke that WIRM. No number of elites will be enough to close the gap between it and us. I bid you farewell. Yun Bing, who had felt the terror of the WIRM's attack, couldn't help trying to dissuade Li Jin from his foolishness. She turned to leave with Chu Feng and their troops. Please, wait. I have a question for Chu Feng. Zhao Jia, standing by Li Jin's side, suddenly yelled out after the two clans had taken a few steps. Instead of turning around, Chu Feng spoke with some frustration. Apologies, Zhao Jia, I can't answer your question. That thief was far too sly, and I couldn't even make out his appearance. His words shocked the gathered hunters. Not only had this mysterious hunter stolen the prey from under the six clans' noses, no one had even seen his appearance. Who would believe something so ridiculous? Regardless of who believed it or not, that was the truth. Zhao Jia was certain that Chu Feng wouldn't lie about this. After all, it was too embarrassing, the six most influential clans of the Black Steel settlement, losing to a lone hunter. Not only had they failed to obtain much of value, all the leaders had sustained some degree of injury, and quite a few of their subordinates had died to the superior-grade Venombane Scorpion's attack. That was the darkest night that the six clans had experienced ever since entering the dimensional world. Each leader cursed the mysterious hunter who had stolen the fruits of their labor. If they ever found out who he was, they would make him suffer for what he had done. Chapter 23. Full Hall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Lai was certain that the six clans would try to take revenge, but he wasn't worried at all. Under ordinary circumstances, he wouldn't even appear on their lists of suspects. No one would believe that someone with his reputation would be able to snatch superior-grade soul's heart from the six great clans, let alone to do it unseen. As for Zhang Lai, he had finally finished with that night's errands. The outcome had been perfect for him, but for the six clans, on the other hand. As they were silently retreating, they encountered the horde of hunters that was heading toward the scene from the Black Steel settlement. The hunters were rushing to the moonlit pond overnight, hoping to get the best rewards before anyone else got there, but the six clans had monopolized everything. Naturally, there would be some hostility between the six clans and the horde of hunters, but that was trivial to deal with. What they couldn't risk was angering the WIRM slumbering at the bottom of the pond. As a result, the six clans had no choice but to resort to a peaceful settlement of affairs, as far away from the pond as possible. Of course, none of this had anything to do with Zhang Lai anymore. He had already returned safely to the settlement, so why would he care about what the other hunters were up to? He rented a room in the Black Gold Inn of the Black Steel settlement. Whereas the Black Steel Inn was governed by the artificial intelligence itself and was the safest inn in the settlement, the Black Gold Inn was privately owned. Because of Wang Xiaohua's occupancy in the Black Steel Inn, there were far too many hunters lurking about its vicinity, and Zhang Lai naturally wouldn't choose to live there. The Black Gold Inn was constructed jointly by the three corporations, and its interior was lavishly decorated. It was widely regarded as the best inn in the settlement. Of course, such a lavish hotel would charge an exorbitant fee, but this was nothing to Zhang Lai now. His 30,000 point bet on himself had earned him a shocking 3.6 million points, and he was now among the richest hunters of the settlement. He certainly had the wherewithal to let loose. After having a long, relaxing bath, he began to look over his spoils. What he had earned over the last 5 days was worth hundreds of times what he had obtained over the past 3 months. Even excluding the profits from the bet, he had made a killing. Qin Xiaotian and his team had provided Zhang Lai with over 30 soul shards. Zhang Lai wasn't interested in most of them, and had listed them up for trade. Then, he had harvested quite a few rare herbs from the Venombane glade, and he had even stolen the kill on the superior-grade Venombane scorpion present there. There were over 100 sprigs of herbs. The most important one was a main ingredient for potion number 2, and a few others could be used to brew potions that were direct counters to certain genetic lifeforms. He had no choice but to bring forward his plans for brewing potion number 2, because that particular ingredient was extremely difficult to store. After sorting through the gathered herbs, Zhang Lai finally retrieved the superior-grade scorpion carcass. It really wasn't very large, and could fit entirely on Zhang Lai's palm. However, its crystalline exoskeleton was quite unique. Of course, the reason he brought it out was in order to prepare it for consumption, so he could finally get more superior gene fragments. Luckily, his luxurious suite came with a well-furnished kitchen. Scorpion-type lifeforms weren't too uncommon in the dimensional world, and most people would consume it deep-fried. Following this trend, Zhang Lai began to prepare a meal of sumptuous deep-fried scorpion. However, the Venombane scorpion was so poisonous that he would have to start by removing its poison sac, then counteract the remnants of the poison with certain herbal ingredients. Otherwise, Zhang Lai might well become the first hunter to die of poisoning himself while trying to extract gene fragments from a superior grade life form. Of course, having been a fourth realm hunter in the past, all of this was easily handled with Zhang Lai's experience. With surprising deftness, he extracted the poison sac from the scorpion, marinated it with a specialized herbal concoction, and began deep-frying it. As the oil sizzled, Zhang Lai probed the superior-grade soul's heart in his soul space to discover its effects. The soul's heart was a deep, mysterious purple, and he could see the outline of a sword deep within it. As expected, it was a weapon-type soul's heart. His gale wind wasn't too bad against mutated-grade lifeforms, but it would be ineffective against superior-grade lifeforms. This sword would greatly enhance his ability to damage superior-grade lifeforms, and would remove one of his shortcomings. Very quickly, the fragrant deep-fried scorpion was ready to be consumed. Deep-fried scorpion tasted far better than he had expected. Much like lobster or crab meat, with a unique texture of its own. As he digested the meat, the will of the world announced. For consuming the flesh of a superior-grade Venombane scorpion, you received 1 superior gene fragment. Current total 11. For consuming the flesh of a superior-grade Venombane scorpion, you received 1 superior gene fragment. Current total 12.1 superior gene fragment. Current total 18. As Zhang Lai consumed the last scorpion leg, he found himself with 8 additional superior gene fragments. The only thing left on the table was a dismembered scorpion exoskeleton. Even so, Zhang Lai wasn't finished. After preparing a few more herbs, he made a soup with the scorpion's carapace as its main ingredient. After drinking it all, Zhang Lai obtained one additional gene fragment, for 19 in all. An individual lifeform would provide at most 10 gene fragments when consumed. However, it was rare that a superior-grade lifeform could be consumed in its entirety. In most circumstances, it was thus impossible for a hunter to get 10 superior gene fragments from a superior grade lifeform. For example, after draining the blood and removing the poison sac of this venom-bane scorpion, it could hardly be expected to provide more than 9 superior gene fragments. Zhang Lai rinsed and dried the scorpion's carapace, then returned it to his potbelly toad pouch. It was still a treasure, after all. Even after being deep fried and boiled, it still maintained impressive structural integrity, and it was tough and resilient. Even though he only had a palm's worth of material, it would still be invaluable for forging purposes. After packing up the scorpion carapace and cleaning everything up, Zhang Lai couldn't wait to activate the superior-grade venom-bane scorpion shard in his soul space. A short sword with a faintly purple sheen appeared in Zhang Lai's right palm. Whereas a regular longsword would have a meter-long blade, this scorpion shortsword only had a blade about 70 centimeters long. It wasn't particularly long, but it wasn't all that short either. The hilt was a deep purple, and the crossguard's design was that of a venom-bane scorpion with its stinger raised high, poised to strike. Zhang Lai immediately felt a strange power emanating from the short sword in his hand. When he activated it, Zhang Lai's body disappeared from sight. This ability had already been demonstrated by the venom-bane scorpion when it was fleeing for its life. It felt as though he had become one with his environment. Even a gust of wind seemed to pass through him without impediment. As long as he didn't make any sudden movement, even a hunter skilled in perception like Chu Feng would be unable to detect his presence. Not only did this short sword possess a stealth ability superior to that from a mutated-grade venom-bane scorpion soul's heart, the blade was naturally covered in the potent venom-bane poison. Of course, as its owner, Zhang Lai would be forever immune to this sort of poison, and it would even grant him partial immunity to the effects of most other poisons. After all, venom-bane scorpions could consume all sorts of poisons, and he could even use the blade to suck up any poison present in other hunters' bodies. Zhang Lai naturally christened this short sword venom-bane. After dealing with his spoils, Zhang Lai slumped into bed and fell asleep immediately. He had done quite a lot that night, and he was tired after all his exertion. Fortunately, all his struggles had been worth it, and he was very pleased with what he had accomplished. On the other hand, others were having a nightmare: Qin Shao, Wang Xiaohua, and the Zhou clan. Qin Shao, who had fortuitously escaped a confrontation with Chu Feng and then with the gathered hunters from the Black Steel settlement by fainting, was now so enraged that he almost actually fainted. While the 6 clans were surrounded by Black Steel hunters, he had overheard some hunters murmuring about how Zhang Lai had exposed Wang Xiaohua's misdeeds. The fiasco unfolding on the forum suggested that it was far more likely that Qin Shaotian had died at Wang Xiaohua's hands, not Zhang Lai's. Furthermore, his act of pushing Zhou Qian out of the cave to save his own life had landed him and the entire Qin clan in dire straits. What? What did you say? You didn't manage to find Xiaotian's corpse? Qin Shao glared at Qin Feng, his eyes red with rage. Yes, master, Qin Feng replied. We combed that mound in and out, but we didn't even find a scrap of clothing, let alone a corpse. Wang Xiaohua had to have lied to you. Wang Xiaohua. Her seemingly gentle face flashed by Qin Zhao's mind, his anger burgeoning. Qin Shao felt as though he understood it all now. This was all a trap, one set up by the Wang clan. First, Wang Xiaohua would entice Qin Shaotian with her looks, then deliberately induce a confrontation between Shaotian and a third party. Using this confrontation, she would lure Shaotian into a trap, steal his soul shards, and then place the blame on that third party. The unfortunate Zhang Lai. Not only that, she would even embroil the other 5 clans in the conflict. She had planned for them to all head to the Venombane glade, hired a hunter to snatch away the fruits of their labor, and even lure out the Moonlight Wyrm to kill him. What a malicious plan. She had been targeting the Qin clan, and even the entire Blacksteel settlement, all along. Chapter 24. Inevitable Ruination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wang Xiaohua. What a cunning actress, what a malicious plan. To think that I, Qin Xiao, would be stymied by this slip of a girl. Once we return to the Blacksteel settlement, keep Wang Xiaohua under heavy guard. Immediately send someone to the city of Ning and have them start surveillance on the Wang clan's every action. Yes, Captain. Qin Xiao immediately focused his attention on the Wang clan, ignoring powerless actors like Zhang Lai in this whole affair. Oh, they would pay dearly for the loss of his arm. With the current advancement of technology, it would be possible for him to recover the use of his tattered arm, but the process would require at least a month of intensive care. This implied that Qin Xiao wouldn't be able to hunt superior-grade lifeforms for the next month, and it could well impact his chances for the Void Cup in 3 months. If this really were the case, then it would be a lethal blow to Qin Xiao. At this moment, Qin Xiao's hatred toward Wang Xiaohua and the entire Wang clan at large surged to unimaginable capacities. Of course, Qin Xiao wasn't the only one angered by the Wang clan. The 3 corporations and the Yun and Chu clans had all quickly connected Wang Xiaohua with the Wang clan. Wang Xiaohua was nothing more than a rich, spoiled heiress, but the Wang clan was a big name in Ning. There were hundreds of settlements in the dimensional world, and the Blacksteel settlement was only one of many. Although the Wang clan might not be famous within the Blacksteel settlement, they were one of the top clans of the Bronze Tooth settlement in the extreme south of the dimensional world. With the Void Cup about to occur, the major powers of each settlement were entering the last stages of their preparation for the cup, and it was inevitable that some hunters would try to sabotage their opponents. After all, this was something that had occurred during previous iterations of the Void Cup as well. In the past, the Blacksteel settlement hadn't been a major power. This time around, however, Yun Bing, Chu Feng, and Qin Xiao were upcoming stars that could well pose a threat to those from other settlements. It wouldn't be strange for others to try to get rid of their opponents. Most importantly, she was the instigator of the entire affair at the Venombane glade, so it was natural that suspicion would be directed at her, especially given her inextricable link to the main branch of the Wang clan. In truth, there were many hunters in the Blacksteel settlement who felt the same way as Qin Xiao. They focused all their attention on Wang Xiaohua and the Wang clan, and failed to notice Zhang Lai, who had vanished from the gene leaderboard quite a while back. As a result, Zhang Lai had precious uninterrupted time for strengthening and advancing himself. That night, representatives from all 6 clans rushed to the Blacksteel Inn to confront Wang Xiaohua. However, by the time they reached the inn, Wang Xiaohua had already rushed back to Earth. Her sudden disappearance confirmed everyone's suspicions that she had instigated the entire event. After all, she was the one who had claimed that Qin Xiaotian's corpse would be buried within the Venombane glade, and the truth of her words were easy to determine. They had gone to the Venombane glade and returned without Qin Xiaotian's corpse, battered by a whole slew of injuries, without the prize that they had been hunting all night. And now that they tried to confront her, they found that she had vanished. What other explanation could there be? All 6 clans began to surveil the Wang clan. Even the older generation clan heads had begun to make their moves upon hearing about the news. Back in Wang Jianxin's house in Ning, Wang Xiaohua was pitifully eyeing her raging father as though she were a convict waiting for judgment. Xiaohua, you've really been far too rash. I told you not to mess with him, didn't I? And now look at what you've done. Tell me the truth. Did Qin Xiaotian's death have anything to do with you? Wang Jianxin frowned, having realized the importance of the matter. He scrutinized his daughter with his gaze, not daring to miss even the slightest detail. As an old hand, he had sensed the latent danger in this conundrum, something he hadn't felt for years. Wang Xiaohua, tears streaking down her face, cried out, "Dad, Xiaotian's my boyfriend. How could I kill him? Don't you believe your own daughter? I'm telling you, Zhang Lai was the mastermind behind everything. He killed Xiaotian, he killed everyone. And then he stole our soul shards. Except for me and him, everyone else who entered the Venombane Glade is dead. He didn't leave me alive because he pitied me, he's using me as a scapegoat. And he even found someone to post an anonymous thread on the forum saying that he saw me scheme against Xiaotian and the rest of them, and they keep besmirching my name. I've tried to argue against them for hours on end, but no one in the settlement believes me. Dad, I need your help. Please, I feel like the Qin clan is going to try to kill me otherwise." Despite Wang Xiaohua's melodramatic behavior, Wang Jianxin let out a breath. "Are you finally afraid now? You make me clean up your mess every single time. What's going to happen when I'm not around anymore? If you truly didn't hurt Qin Xiaotian, then what do you have to worry about? As for the Qin clan, you don't have to worry about that either. As long as you didn't kill Qin Xiaotian, I can guarantee that you'll be safe. As for clearing up your name, forget it. The moment you and Zhang Lai returned to the settlement together, you lost whatever chance you had at that. The more you try to defend yourself, the more they'll accuse you. You're from the Wang clan, but Zhang Lai's a nobody. Your connections and wealth make you a target." Upon hearing her father's words, Wang Xiaohua calmed down a little. "Dad, in that case, what should we do? I was the one who buried Xiaotian's corpse myself. I told everyone that, as long as they find the corpse, it'll be clear that I'm not lying. Can't that clear my name?" "Xiaohua, you're still far too naive. I've just told you that you'll never be able to clear your name as long as you're alive, and people will always be much more suspicious of you than they would Zhang Lai. Don't you know why? Who would believe that a supposed weakling like Zhang Lai would be able to overcome you and Qin Xiaotian on his own? But you don't have to be too worried either. At any rate, you're still a member of the Wang clan. Even if you really had committed the murder, just the Qin clan alone wouldn't be able to do anything to you. And while I might not have much standing in the main household, at the very least, I'm still a member of the clan, and our clan certainly won't let us be bullied like this. Let me call your third uncle and ask him to speak to the other clans on your behalf. This should resolve the problem." Wang Xiaohua was overjoyed. "Really? That would really be a weight off my shoulders. Dad, won't you call him now? Qin Zhao's too frightening, and those hunters from the Black Steel settlement are still keeping guard outside my hotel room. I don't even dare step outside. They're all so annoying." Wang Jianxin could think of no better way of resolving the current dilemma. However, just as he was about to call the current head of the Wang household, Wang Han, the holographic display lit up. Wang Han was contacting them. Wang Jianxin couldn't help but think that something was amiss, but he didn't dare refuse a call from the head of the household himself. He immediately accepted the call. The next moment, the holographic projector showed the cold mien of a middle-aged man. "Wang Jianxin, you bastard, are you trying to ruin the Wang clan? The elders of the clan are going to arrive within 10 minutes to take Wang Xiaohua away. Hand her to them immediately." Wang Jianxin and Wang Xiaohua greeted him respectfully, but Wang Han ignored the customary greetings and began yelling at them the moment the call connected. Wang Jianxian had to reevaluate the importance of this entire affair. "Wang Han, what's going on? Xiaohua's my only child, and I would be fine entrusting her to your care, but why the urgency?" He was so indulgent of his only daughter that he still intended to protect her even at this critical juncture. "What's the matter? You're asking me what's the matter? Don't you think that's something I should be asking the two of you?" Wang Han's roar clearly conveyed his rage. Just now, Qin Zongming, Zhou Tianqi, Yun Yi, Chu Tiannan, Li Qing, and Zhao Yu all called me, congratulating me for my accomplishment. They praised how devious a certain hunter from our Wang household was, stealing the kill of a superior grade life form, killing Zhou Qian, crippling one of Qin Zhao's arms, and causing the entire Black Steel settlement to erupt in chaos. How should I know what's going on? Tell Wang Xiaohua to pack up and head straight to the Wang manor to explain herself. Otherwise, even the Wang household won't be able to protect her. The 6 clans have already started surveilling the Wang estate. Wang Jianxin and Wang Xiaohua gaped at Wang Han's words. Before Wang Jianxin could react, Wang Han had cut the connection. Clearly, he was telling them that the only way for Wang Xiaohua to remain protected was for them to stay where they were. By now, even Wang Jianxin was starting to panic. Xiaohua, tell me what's going on. Dad, I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about stealing a superior-grade life form, killing Zhou Qian, and crippling Qin Zhao. I only told them how to head to the Venombane Glade. It wasn't me. Do you think someone like me could do any of this? You know how I am. It has to be Zhang Lai, right? It can't be anyone but him. He's taking revenge on us, and he wants to kill us both. It has to be him. Wang Xiaohua's pride and arrogance had crumbled away, replaced by overwhelming, unrelenting despair. It was too late, far too late for her. Even if Wang Xiaohua were to remain alive, her future was doomed to bleakness. Chapter 25. Bleak outcome. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wang Jianxin thundered, so what if it were him? Do you have any proof? Would others believe you? Zhang Lai's famous in your settlement for being useless, a fool who spent 3 months killing white grubs. Do you think that the 6 clans, or even the Black Steel hunters, would believe that all their plans were waylaid by a fool? They wouldn't. That it's impossible. Even if Zhang Lai were to step out now and claim that he planned everything, no one would believe him. From the very moment you stepped back into the Black Steel settlement, you fell into his trap. There's no way out for you now. Escape. Run away now. You won't be able to withstand the household's punishment, and once you admit to the crime, our whole clan will be sentenced to death. Before the elders get here, escape while you can, as far away as possible. I'll do my best to delay them, and I'll help you find a way out of this mess. If possible, head to Zhang Lai's place first. Getting to that crippled sister of his will be your only hope. What are you waiting for? Leave, run, flee. Dad, but, where would I go? Wang Xiaohua blinked at him with tear-stained eyes. Wang Jianxin pushed a few point cards into her hands. Leave Ning, and don't head toward any city controlled by the 6 clans. Go anywhere else you want. Remember, within the next 3 months, don't attempt to contact me, and don't attempt to contact any of your friends. Do you understand? With his hands firmly on Wang Xiaohua's shoulders, Wang Jianxin pushed Wang Xiaohua out of his house. Dad, I'm scared. Don't worry. With me around, everything will be resolved eventually. But you have to leave now. Wang Xiaohua's heart was filled with dread as to what she would have to endure. After consoling Wang Xiaohua, Wang Jianxin stuffed her into his hover car. Not 5 minutes after Wang Xiaohua left, 3 imposing middle-aged men rushed into the Wang estate. But Wang Xiaohua had already left, so they couldn't get what they came for. In the end, they had no choice but to take Wang Jianxin into custody instead. In a mansion in Ning, Wang Han stared at his brother in disappointment. Have you thought about the consequences of letting your daughter go free? Wang Jianxin replied, of course I have, but how can I bear to see my daughter be punished for something she hasn't done? She's innocent. Why should she have to be the scapegoat? You know they'd kill her. Wang Han shook his head. No, the Wang clan wouldn't let her be killed. We need Xiaohua here in order to reveal the truth behind the entire affair, in order to reclaim justice for our clan. But now that you've sent her away, if anything happens to her, we won't have any means of refuting the claims leveled against us. Look at this report. I told you how important this matter was, and the other clans aren't going to stop until they've hunted her down. Call her back immediately. If she gets caught, if she gets killed, that'll be the end of our clan. Wang Jianxin looked over the report, his face darkening as he flipped through its pages. What a nasty, vicious plan. It was clearly meant to destroy Wang Xiaohua, and even the rest of the Wang clan as well. Over the course of a single night, the entire Black Steel settlement, including its 6 most influential clans, had become enemies of the Wang clan. The Zhou, Qin, and Chu clans, who had suffered most, even claimed the Wang clan as their sworn enemy. Unless the Wang clan could provide irrefutable evidence that Wang Xiaohua played no role in the affair, none of the 3 clans would let matters rest so easily. Justice. Brother, don't lie to me. I'm not like Xiaohua, and I don't believe in some supposed justice. It's too hard to recover the truth. I've asked Xiaohua and she doesn't know anything. The other party has made sure that there's no way out for her. Wang Jianxian's face was pale, as though he were a beached fish. Regardless, you had better call Xiaohua back. With her around, we can at least explain that we're investigating what happened, but if she vanishes, we'll be tacitly accepting responsibility for what has happened. I'll call her back, but you have to promise, as the head of the household, that you won't throw her out to the wolves, or you'll have to kill me first. Despite having been expelled from the main household, Wang Jianxin couldn't turn his back from it completely, and he eventually relented after proposing his own condition. Wang Han shook his head in exasperation. All right, I promise you I'll do my utmost best to protect her from retribution. Send for her. Your best isn't enough, you have to promise you won't hand her over. Wang Han inclined his head and fisted his hair in frustration. Fine. I promise I won't hand her over. Send her back. Wang Jianxin gave his brother a piercing glance before activating the transceiver on his wristwatch, a specialized communication tool between father and daughter. However, Wang Xiaohua rejected the call. When he tried calling her again, the call was blocked completely. It was only then that Wang Jianxin remembered that he had warned Wang Xiaohua not to try to communicate with him, or with any of her friends. She likely thought that the Wang clan was trying to find her through Wang Jianxin, so she had blocked all calls. Quick, head to this location. Wang Jianxin, panicking, immediately showed Wang Han's subordinates the coordinates listed on his wristwatch. Brother, if something were to happen to the Wang clan, you realize you'll be held solely responsible for the clan's downfall. How are you going to explain this to father? Wang Han was barely able to keep himself from screaming. There's nothing I can do about it now, is there? Quick, send someone to Zhang Lai's house. As long as we have Zhang Hanxiang in custody, we might be able to salvage the situation. Zhang Lai, Zhang Hanxiang. Zhang Yi's 2 children. Are you certain that he was the one responsible for all this? Wang Han was a little skeptical. Who would believe that someone as young as Zhang Lai could come up with such a devious plan? After the incident, he had reviewed what little information he had on Zhang Lai. By all reports a mediocre, useless hunter who amounted to nothing. How could someone like him have offended all 6 clans, killed Zhou Qian, and crippled Qin Shao within a single night? The very thought was ludicrous. Wang Jianxin's face turned even paler. Gritting his teeth, he said, even if it wasn't him, he's clearly connected to this entire affair. Wang Bin, I want you to personally head to the Zhang house and to take both of them into custody. Make sure you don't alert any security guards along the way. The Void Cup's about to start, and we can't have anyone getting disqualified now. Yes, head. One of Wang Han's subordinates strode forward, bowed, and rushed out. Why in the world would you provoke someone like him? As far as I understand, that brat's a useless hunter. If he weren't provoked, why would he risk his life to create all this trouble? You've been blinded by money, brother. No matter how many treasures that Zhang Yi had, he was only ever a peak second realm hunter. He wouldn't have had anything of true value. If the Wang clan were to suffer because of this incident, even I won't be able to protect you and your daughter. I know full well what I did. If things come to that, hand me over. I'll bear responsibility for everything. Give the other clan some benefits as compensation, and count it as my debt to the clan. I have no choice but to repay it in my next life, don't I? Wang Jianxin would even sacrifice himself to protect his daughter, and no amount of criticism on Wang Han's part would change anything. Instead, Wang Han only sighed. If Wang Xiaohua couldn't be found, then the 6 clans' grudges wouldn't be resolved satisfactorily. In that case, they would take it out on the Wang clan. In truth, they had already begun taking action against the Wang clan upon receiving the news that Wang Jianxin had been summoned to the Wang headquarters. All manner of incidents were suddenly happening to the businesses owned by the Wang clan. Nasty rumors and gossip about the Wang clan abounded. In a matter of minutes, the Wang clan's assets had dropped by over 100 million, and that number was surely just going to keep increasing. Worst of all, of these 6 clans, the Yun and Chu clans were even more powerful than the Wang clan, and if they had set their mind to it, they could have ruined the Wang clan instantly. It was because of that potential threat that the Wang clan could do nothing but suffer their losses in silence. Meanwhile, Wang Xiaohua had finally made her way, after quite a number of twists and detours, to Zhang Lai's house. However, she only dared to look at it from afar, because she could see Zhang Lai making breakfast through an open window. By now, Wang Xiaohua thought of Zhang Lai as a demon. She didn't dare to appear in front of him, let alone provoke him. Zhang Lai didn't notice her presence, but he was certain that the mess that he had inadvertently created would only grow larger with time. His sister, Hanxiang, would therefore end up in danger. As a result, after his restful sleep in the Dimensional World's Inn, he immediately headed back home. After having breakfast, Zhang Lai immediately brought Zhang Hanxiang to an inspection bureau. The Inspection Bureau was a government organization responsible for testing and recording the quantity and quality of a hunter's genetic energy, constitution, and strength in order to categorize that hunter as a certain class of citizen. Given Zhang Lai's current numbers, he was quite confident that he could be tested as a first-class citizen. And as a first-class citizen, one of his direct relatives would be able to benefit from all that his status conferred. In particular, he would be able to send his sister to a specialized high school for further education. Once she entered the school, she would be protected. Because of the stellar and spatial warfare that had led to extreme casualties at the start of the century, there had been extremely heavy emphasis placed on cultivating the talents of the next generation. Part of this emphasis manifested in the form of extreme protection and an absolute ban on violence on campus grounds. As long as Hanxiang was properly enrolled as a student, even the Wang clan would be powerless to act against her. Chapter 26. Foolproof Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Because Zhang Lai and Zhang Hanxiang arrived at the inspection bureau early, there were relatively few hunters present, and he was able to get tested quickly. The inspection consisted of 2 stages. First, constitution, and second, mental acuity. The constitution test was itself divided into 2 smaller parts. The first was a test of strength, and the second a test of speed. Of course, neither test allowed the use of genetic energy. Good luck, brother. Outside the testing area, Hanxiang was pumping her fists, causing Zhang Lai to smile. The testing apparatus wasn't all too complicated. It was just a sandbag with a few extra gimmicks. Number 4, Li Feng, first attempt. Strength 4.5, C. Grade. Pass. Number 5, Song Jia, third attempt. Strength 3.3, D. Grade. Fail. The synthetic voice of the supervising robot caused some to erupt in joy, and others in tears. The world government had decided to quantify a hunter's strength in order to better categorize them. Those hunters who had capped their mutated gene capacity would need a strength value of 4.0 to pass. A 4.0 indicated that a hunter had about 3 to 4 times the strength of a regular human. Failing to get a 4.0 or higher meant that those hunters were unable to make full use of their own strength. After waiting for a few minutes, Zhang Lai's name was finally called, and he walked forward to an unoccupied sandbag. Number 9, Zhang Lai, first attempt. Zhang Lai stepped forward, pretending to charge up his strength. Only when his face was red from holding his breath in did he step forward and punched the sandbag with one heavy blow. Strength 4.2, C. Grade. You still have 2 more attempts to try to improve your score. Do you wish to continue? No, just passing is enough for me. Zhang Lai happily took the certification card that the robotic attendant handed over, then walked back to where his sister was seated. Just as with the test of strength, Zhang Lai managed a borderline pass for the test of speed and mental acuity. In little more than 10 minutes, Zhang Lai had obtained a silver first-class identification card, as well as a silver-gray subsidiary card for Hanxiang. Looking at these 2 cards, Zhang Lai and Zhang Hanxiang both began to smile. Hanxiang gasped. Brother, with this card, can I attend Holy Glory Academy now? Zhang Lai nodded. Of course. In fact, I was planning on bringing you there to enroll today. What do you think? Today. Have you forgotten, Holy Glory Academy is the best of the schools in the region, and they have an open admission policy even in the middle of a semester. But isn't there an exorbitant fee if you do that? Don't worry, I can handle the expenses. With me around, you just have to focus on your studies. Brother, thank you. We're family, aren't we? Let's go. The 2 of them headed right for the school district. Just as they did so, Wang Bin arrived at the Zhang house. Of course, by the time he got there was no one inside. His delay was understandable. He had little experience in the commoners' districts, and he didn't realize the extent to which the morning rush would clog up all traffic. After arriving, he received a message from the clan stating that their target had been sighted at the inspection bureau. However, he wasn't told to give chase, others had already been dispatched to that location, and he was to head back to the manor instead. However, those subordinates dispatched to the inspection bureau also failed to find their target, and were unable to retrieve anything but some footage of Zhang Lai's inspection exam. As he glanced at that footage, at how Zhang Lai was barely able to meet the target with a huge expenditure of effort, Wang Han turned to Wang Jianxin skeptically. Brother, are you certain a kid like this had something to do with the entire affair? Wang Han wasn't the only one with suspicions. Everyone who had seen the footage felt the same way. After all, what had happened that night at the Venombane Glade was a shocking feat of cunning, certainly not something an ordinary hunter would be able to come up with. Don't be tricked by his appearance, Wang Han. He's a shrewd fellow, and I bet he's faking his performance. Given what had happened with the rental agreement, Wang Jianxin thought that he had a good grasp of what Zhang Lai was like, but no one else thought similarly. It's not a matter of whether we believe it, certainly, but whether the Black Steel Hunters and the 6 clans will. Even if we made someone like him reveal the truth, would anyone even believe it? Wang Jianxin shook his head. Believe me, as long as we can control this lad, all our problems will be resolved. Where is he now? Wang Han's face darkened. On campus grounds. Didn't I tell you? He's a sneaky bastard. Damn it, I bet he sent his sister to one of the academies so we can't get a hold of her. Wang Jianxin had discovered Zhang Lai's plan. Not only his sister, if I'm not wrong, he'll find a teleportation device to enter the dimensional world directly from the academy. And once he's inside, as long as he stays within the settlement, we won't be able to do anything to him. Wang Han's face was icy. Brother, we have to think of some other strategy. We don't have any more time to waste on this kid. Indeed, the most pressing issue was time. The longer this problem dragged out, the longer the 6 clans would continue clamping down on their businesses, and the more severely their finances would be disrupted. Zhang Lai had managed to turtle himself up so tightly that, within the short term, no one from the Wang clan would be able to do anything about him. The Holy Glory Academy had a somewhat Western name, but the construction and style of the buildings was all perfectly Oriental. The city of Ning lay at the heart of China, and the weight of that culture would not be so easily displaced. Although the academy did hire foreign professors, it was still largely in line with traditional Chinese ideals. Given how much money Zhang Lai was waving around to expedite the process, it was no surprise that Zhang Hanxiang's enrollment proceeded as smoothly as it did. In no more than half an hour, they were done with all the paperwork. After considering the issue of Zhang Hanxiang's safety, Zhang Lai decided to spend a veritable fortune, $1 million a month, to rent the highest class robot companion for his sister. Zhang Hanxiang was his only sibling, and her disability could well make her a target. He didn't want her to have to suffer any harassment on his behalf. "Brother, did something happen to you inside the dimensional world?" Seeing Zhang Lai's behavior, even the innocent Zhang Hanxiang seemed to notice that something was amiss. Zhang Lai laughed lightly. "A small problem, but don't worry, I'm all right now. I'm just afraid some people might try to get at me through you. But since you're on campus grounds now, and with this robotic companion for protection, I believe you're safe from any potential danger. That being said, Hanxiang, make sure you notify me if anything at all, were to happen. Keep this close to you at all times. If you encounter any sort of danger, press it and I'll be notified immediately." Zhang Lai handed her what looked like a black button. Zhang Hanxiang seemed a little perturbed, but she immediately kept the button without asking any questions. After all, her brother was the only person she could rely on, as well as the person to whom she was closest. This black button, deceptively small and simple as it was actually a device that was able to bypass the technological restriction of the dimensional world and transmit signals from Earth. Zhang Lai had spent a whopping 500,000 points on it, and it was a device that no ordinary hunter would be able to afford. "I understand, brother. I'll be safe within the campus, and with all these safeguards, I don't have to worry about anything at all. Brother, you're the one who has to be more careful, I wouldn't be able to stand losing you." Zhang Lai laughed. "Don't worry about me, Hanxiang. I don't have to fear my enemies, they should fear me." After touring the campus grounds with Hanxiang, and after introducing himself to her professors, Zhang Lai waved goodbye to his sister. As Wang Han had anticipated, he found a teleportation apparatus and headed straight back to the dimensional world. He returned to his room in the Black Gold Inn and immediately began to browse the forum to understand what had transpired since his departure. Of course, the only thing of note was still the battle at the Venombane Glade. The forum was filled with rumors and speculation about what had happened there. Of course, it was difficult to discern between actual information and hearsay, or, worse, fake news. However, even though most people weren't aware of the events that had taken place at the Glade, the aftermath was clearly known to all. Zhou Qian, head of the Zhou Corporation, had perished. Qin Xiao had lost an arm. Yun Bing, Chu Feng, and many other hunters had suffered serious injuries. Such casualties had undoubtedly sparked interest into the details of what had happened in the Glade. If you all want to know the truth so badly, then I have no choice but to oblige. Soon after, the article, "Showdown at the Venombane Glade," specifics included, appeared on the forum. It spread like wildfire. Zhang Lai had repeated his past strategy for dealing with Wang Xiaohua. In this post, from the perspective of a bystander, he exhaustively described the events that had taken place in the Glade. How Qin Xiao had lost his arm, who had actually pushed Zhou Qian out of the tunnel, causing him to die from the Moonlight Wirm's attack, who had ultimately ended up killing the superior grade Scorpion, and even how the Moonlight Wirm had been lured out. And this time, over 90% of what he had written was even the honest truth. Of course, the author was again anonymous. Chapter 27. Technique Auction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As Zhang Lai anticipated, his article rapidly set the hunters of the Black Steel settlement abuzz. Several of the leaders of the expedition, like Yun Bing and Chu Feng, had even replied confirming the accuracy of the article. After all, what it described was essentially identical to what they had experienced. In fact, some parts of it went into even more detail than even they were aware of. The moment they read through the article, they were certain that the anonymous author had been at the scene during that fateful night. Most importantly, it had detailed how Qin Xiao had pushed Zhou Qian out of the cave to save his own life, so Yun Bing and Chu Feng would naturally support the article and spread it on their own. The 6 clans began hunting for this mysterious author, but to no avail. Every hunter in the settlement was guaranteed their privacy by the Black Steel Settlement's artificial intelligence. Without any authorization, it was impossible for anyone to break apart a hunter's anonymity. It was for this reason that Zhang Lai had dared to reveal such crucial information. He would be able to maintain his own anonymity while drawing out his enemies. After satisfying himself, he began to browse the trading post again. Zhang Lai believed that the Qin and Wang clans would have quite a lot of issues to contend with in the future. They wouldn't be able to spare the time or attention to deal with a nobody like him. And as for him, well, he was going to keep amassing his fortune. Most of the things that he had listed on the trading post had already sold. The soul shards owned by Qin Xiaotian and his team were grabbed almost as soon as they were listed. After all, the dimensional world was quite unlike reality. Except in the settlements, individual power dominated over everything. Even if Qin Zhao's own soul shards were somehow stolen and listed on the marketplace, some enterprising hunters would still buy them all. As a result, Zhang Lai earned another pile of points, though it paled in comparison to what he had obtained from betting on himself. What had caught his attention was a reply he had received on his request searching for water-attuned techniques. The reply came from a user with the alias Daffodil. She intimated that she had multiple water-attuned techniques, all of surpassingly high quality, but was afraid that Zhang Lai didn't have enough points for them. Her words would likely have stopped the Zhang Lai of a few days ago from inquiring further. After all, how could he have afforded those techniques? But now, he was filthy rich. He immediately replied, "Show me what you've got. Rather than worrying about whether or not I can afford it, you should be worried about whether your techniques are high quality enough to be worth my attention." To his surprise, she replied instantly. "Excellent timing. I'm auctioning the techniques off right now." This reply immediately enticed Zhang Lai. Any techniques that were put up for auction were generally high quality. Inferior goods wouldn't be worth the fee that the marketplace would take. Zhang Lai accessed the auction following her instructions, entering a virtual space with a raised circular stage and seats all around that stage. A woman, whom Zhang Lai assumed was this Daffodil, stood on stage in a pale white dress, gracefully showing off her goods. Surrounding the stage were the virtual avatars of countless buyers. Diovi Co-op on stage, beside the woman, a robot was demonstrating a water-attuned polearm technique. In a clear, crisp voice, she explained the technique that the robot was using. Seacrest Blade, a high-grade technique buoyed by the force of the sea. Its patterns are as erratic and unpredictable as ocean waves, sure to confound your opponent. This water-attuned technique would be a valuable addition to any hunter's repertoire, and it has a starting bid of 7,000 points. Might anyone here be interested? 10,000 points. 12,000, I bid 15,000. Before Zhang Lai could even react, the price had doubled to 15,000 points, leaving him quite surprised. However, given that price, most hunters had sat back down again, unwilling to bid further. Even a particularly good high-grade technique was only worth 10,000 points at best. From Zhang Lai's perspective, while the waves that the technique generated were eye-catching, the actual blade work itself didn't seem like anything special. Furthermore, as a sword user, he had no interest in it. Sensing the lack of continued interest, the woman rapped her knuckles against the table. Seacrest Blade, sold for 15,000 points. Next up, one of the centerpieces of this auction, the pinnacle-grade water-attuned technique, Fists of the Silent Sea, a fist-based technique with immutable force. This time, the woman only provided a concise explanation before motioning to her robot. The robot struck with one fist, sending ripples of genetic energy through the air. It was a gentle movement, like the caress of wind over the water's surface, but with an undeterrable strength that could still even the roiling waves of the sea. A gentleness that belied its strength, a strength that could not be overcome. Dominating, overwhelming, it certainly deserved its classification as a pinnacle-grade technique. This technique was undoubtedly superior to even most pinnacle-grade techniques. He wanted it. The starting bid for this technique will be 50,000 points. The moment Daffodil announced the price, a red-clothed man sitting near the front immediately raised his hand and shouted, 55,000. Are you broke, to only raise the bid by 5,000? I'll bid 70,000 points, a man taunted from a section-off area of the virtual hall, likely restricted to VIPs. Only 70,000. Song E, it looks like you're running out of points. This technique's compatible with my sister's framework, and I'll bid 100,000 points. Another voice spoke up, from a man dressed in blue not too far away. 100,000 points for a pinnacle-grade technique is a bargain. I bid 120,000 points. The man in blue scoffed. If you want a bidding war, I'm happy to accompany you. 150,000 points. He was starting to smile amidst the other party's silence when Zhang Lai stood up. 300,000 points. Chapter 28. Penniless again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The gathered crowd had all gone silent. 300,000 points. Double the last bid. What kind of rich asshole was this? No matter how many points he had, who would be so wasteful as to do something like this? They all turned toward Zhang Lai, but unfortunately, all they could see was a black cloak. Even the loudmouthed VIPs had gone silent. Pinnacle-grade techniques tended to go for 200,000 points or so, and the fact that this hunter was bidding 300,000 points meant that this was a technique that he sorely needed. They had no intention to compete with him. After all, there were more techniques they could bid for instead. The host, Daffodil, waited for a few moments, surveying the crowd, before rapping her knuckles on the table again. 300,000 points from the honored guest in black. The fists of the silent sea will go to you. He swiped his point card and inputted the ID of the teleportation apparatus in his room. The purchase arrived not 15 seconds later. It was divided into two parts, a manual detailing the technique and a holographic recording of a robot using the technique. After he confirmed receipt of the item, the points were transferred to Daffodil. The auction was still in progress, but Zhang Lai wasn't too interested in the remaining items up for bidding. However, just as he was about to leave, he found a few herbs that he was interested in, as well as another advanced water-attune technique. In particular, the I.Night flower was yet another main ingredient for potion number 2. It was generally only available from the second realm onwards, so Zhang Lai was very surprised to see it on auction. With these discoveries, Zhang Lai certainly had to stay for the remainder of the auction. Since pill-making wasn't yet a mature field, these herbs weren't worth very much, and Zhang Lai managed to obtain the I.Night at a shockingly cheap price of 10,000 points. Zhang Lai sat through the rest of the auction in boredom. After an entire hour, it was finally time for that genetic technique that he had been eyeing to come up for auction. Daffodil's face turned serious. Finally, our last and most valuable item for today. The Boundless Blade. On stage, a worn, ancient manual appeared in front of the hunter's eyes. The Boundless Blade, a mythic-grade sword technique. Starting bid, 150,000 points. A mythic-grade technique. Are you joking? Zhang Lai was also somewhat skeptical, but someone else spoke up before he could. A mythic-grade technique could easily become the signature technique of a dojo. For example, the premier dojo of Ning, the Blizzard Dojo, had been named after its signature mythic-grade technique, Blizzard's Eye. Zhang Lai hadn't expected that someone would be willing to trade a mythic.grade technique for points, at least not in the first realm. Daffodil didn't seem too bothered. Instead, she motioned to the robot beside her, which headed to center stage. The robot was so advanced that, from its outer appearance alone, it looked no different from a regular human. It placed one hand on the hilt of his sword, then froze at the precise moment of activation of the technique. Just this simple action was enough to reveal the technique's majesty. Behind the robot flared the backdrop of a vast ocean, seeming to endow the robot with its strength. This was undoubtedly a mythic.grade technique, and even one that was water.attuned. He had to obtain this technique by any means. Does anyone still doubt the authenticity of this technique? Daffodil asked. This holographic display simulates the technique as a novice would activate it, and more specialized use of the technique is certainly possible with further study. From the crowd, a hunter piped up, "Isn't it daylight robbery to try to sell a mythic.grade technique for 1.5 million? This is a technique, not a framework. I'll pay 1.2 million at most. If you don't have points, screw off and stop embarrassing yourself. I'll bid 1.6 million. You think you can get a mythic.grade technique with just 1.6 million points? I'll bid 1.8 million. I'm Sun Mu from the Green Forest Settlement. Do you know who I am? Don't you dare try to outbid me. What Green Forest Settlement? What Sun Clan? Why should I care who you are? This is an anonymous auction. How do you expect to take revenge on me when you don't even know my identity? I, a roadside weed, will bid 2 million points. Indeed, it wasn't a smart move for hunters to reveal their identity in such auctions. Not only did their name not mean anything, they were easily targeted by the rest of the anonymous crowd. You dare reveal your identity, and are you an idiot? Of course I'm not telling you that. Now, if you're not going to keep bidding, why don't you shut up? Sun Mu was so enraged he could hardly speak. You'd better not let me find out who you are, you bastard. I'll bid 2.5 million. Ha! 2.6 million. The hunter seemed more invested in enraging Sun Mu than winning the auction. Sun Mu clearly didn't expect the other hunter to keep outbidding him. 2.5 million was as high as he could go, and all he could do was stare at the offending party in resentful anger. 2.6 million was already a high price for such a technique, especially given the relatively nameless auction. There were perhaps a few rich hunters scattered throughout the attendees, but no one present was spectacularly rich. Even those who had sufficiently many points to bid had to think carefully about whether it was worth it. 3 million. Just as the crowd thought that the nameless bidder was about to obtain the water.attune technique for 2.6 million, the blue-clad hunter sitting in the first row, who had initially claimed to want to buy a technique for his sister, made a new bid. Increasing the bid by 400,000 at this juncture was a ploy to deter others from bidding, but it also showed how invested he was in it. 3 million points was worth $300 million on Earth. Given how impactful genetic techniques were, however, $300 million wasn't too extreme a price to pay for additional power. Even $1 billion wouldn't be too pricey for a mythic.grade technique of particular compatibility. However, the problem was that no hunter could be certain that any given technique would be so compatible with their framework. Furthermore, water.attuned frameworks were a relative rarity, so there were few hunters for whom it would be useful in the first place. A hush descended on the crowd. The bidding seemed to have come to a close. Just then, as everyone thought that the auction was over, Zhang Lai raised his hand. 4 million points. Everyone turned to look at him, but all they saw was a hooded robe. The blue-clad man scowled, mumbling, "Is there a need to act so mysteriously? What an annoyance." Zhang Lai smiled and bowed in his direction. 4 million points, an increment of 1 million over the last bid, was about as high as the price of this technique could feasibly go. Other potential bidders had given up at 3 million, and a bid of 4 million was sufficient to silence them. Even Daffodil only waited for a few seconds of silence from the crowd before rapping her knuckles on the table again. The winning bid is 4 million points, the boundless blade, goes to the man in black. Zhang Lai couldn't help but smile. After all, 4 million points was as high as he could go. If someone were to continue bidding, Zhang Lai would have been able to match that bid, but he would have to mortgage some of his fire-attuned techniques to do so. He sighed as he swiped the 4 million points on his card away. He had acquired such wealth just a few days ago, and here he was spending it all already. Zhang Lai was again all but penniless. But it was a worthwhile investment, after all, and he was eagerly anticipating the boundless blade. Just as before, the technique arrived in his room within half a minute. After the auction was over, Zhang Lai waited by his seat until the other hunters left. Naturally, Daffodil took notice of him. Once everyone else was gone, she closed the virtual auction hall and set up a personalized meeting room instead. Congratulations on becoming the 30th million. Class customer of the 1000. Treasure Pavilion. May I help you with anything? Zhang Lai could hear faint notes of happiness in her voice from the magnitude of her sales today. I do have 2 questions. First, could you tell me about the origin of this technique? I would hate to have to hide it from the public eye after learning it. Second, does your establishment also offer acquisition-related services? Upon hearing Zhang Lai's 2 questions, Daffodil smiled. I can assure you that this technique was acquired through a reputable source. No one, neither in the dimensional world or in reality, will give you any trouble with regards to this technique. In fact, it was a recent find by one of our employees, and it's never been revealed to the public before. Zhang Lai immediately relaxed. As for your second question, given your status as an honored million. Class customer here with us at the 1000. Treasure Pavilion, your needs are our needs. We will do everything we can to satisfy your requests. Zhang Lai had to admit that Daffodil was very skilled at customer service. In that case, I have to praise your dedication to your customers. He visualized a list of herbal ingredients that he needed for one potion or another, actualized it in the virtual space, and then handed it to Daffodil. The list detailed the quantity and purchase price that Zhang Lai was willing to accept for each ingredient. Daffodil scanned the list, then bowed in Zhang Lai's direction. I've received your request, and will contact you as soon as I acquire the listed ingredients. Might I ask how I should address you, honored customer? Zhang Lai smiled. You can call me Peppercorn. Very good, Mr. Peppercorn. On behalf of the 1000. Treasure Pavilion, I thank you for your support, and I wish you luck with mastering your new techniques. After the exchange, Zhang Lai left the virtual space. Chapter 29. Tragic ending. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In truth, Zhang Lai didn't regret his purchases at all. He would always be able to amass more points, and he had all sorts of resources with which to do so. Furthermore, a compatible framework or technique would boost his personal strength by several times, and Zhang Lai had found himself enthralled by both techniques. He hurriedly flipped the manuals open and began to study the techniques in earnest. Even small inns boasted rooms with environment modification capabilities, let alone a VIP suite in the best inn in the Black Steel settlement. Over the next 3 days, Zhang Lai dedicated his entire attention to learning the 2 techniques. He was as dedicated as a high-school student cramming for the Gaokao. And while he might have been able to focus on his techniques in peace, the 6 clans of the Black Steel settlement and the Wang clan could not. The Wang clan had tried all sorts of tactics to vindicate themselves, but Wang Xiaohua's sudden disappearance meant that it was all but impossible for them to do so. After all, Zhang Lai's cunning trap had doomed them to ruin the moment Wang Xiaohua returned to the Black Steel settlement with him. After 5 days, not only did they fail to clear their name, they had even given the 6 clans the mistaken interpretation that the Wang clan was planning another attack against them. As a result, they imposed even harsher sanctions against the Wang clan. The Wang clan's financial losses had, by that point, broken past tens of billions of dollars. Not only that, the supervisory position on the interstellar hub situated on the planet Nolan, which the Wang clan had been eyeing, was suddenly filled by another candidate on the strongest recommendation from the 6 clans. This wasn't something money alone could resolve. The Wang clan had been planning to fill this position with a trusted clan member for 3 whole years, but right as they were about to succeed, the 6 clans had ruined their plan. The Wang clan had no choice but to concede the matter. In the end, Wang Jianxin stepped forward and bore full responsibility for what had happened, and he willingly accepted expulsion to the planet Chaos. Chaos was where criminals were sent to bear their sentences, with a harsh environment and even harsher inhabitants. Most sent there perished, and none had a chance of returning to Earth ever again. Furthermore, the Wang clan compensated and apologized to the 6 clans individually, temporarily stabilizing the situation. That Wang Jianxin had taken full responsibility meant that the Wang clan was now enemies with the Qin and Zhou clans. Even though the 2 clans had stopped retaliating at the Wang clan for this supposed crime, there would be no goodwill between them were their hunters to meet in the dimensional world or on Earth. This unexpected disaster had ruined any hope of the Wang clan expanding its influence further in the short term, and the instigator of this entire affair was just a nameless hunter called Zhang Lai. No matter how furious they were, there was simply nothing that they could do against Zhang Lai at the moment. And not only were they unable to take revenge on this damned cockroach, they even had to bear the full brunt of the retaliation. Of course, the Wang clan wasn't the only victim of this affair. The Qin clan was suffering just as much, in fact, they would incur even harsher sanctions and retaliation. After all, the Wang clan wasn't directly responsible for murdering anyone. It was thus able to settle matters with monetary compensation, with a sincere apology, and with voluntary expulsion from the culprit, but the Qin clan had no such recourse. Because of Zhang Lai's anonymous article, Qin Shao had become the prime suspect for the murder of Zhou Qian. Yun Bing and Chu Feng had both testified to their innocence, and the Zhou clan had learned the entire truth. In that sort of situation, if not for Qin Zhao's selfishness, Zhou Qian wouldn't have died, and he wouldn't have needed to die. As a result, Qin Shao, along with the entire Qin clan, became a target of loathing. Since the Qin clan wasn't willing to hand over Qin Shao, the 5 clans, the Yun and Chu, along with the 3 great corporations, launched a punitive attack against the Qin clan. More precisely, they began targeting hunters from the Qin clan in the dimensional world. In just 2 days, half of the Qin scions in the Black Steel settlement were wounded or even dead, and the Qin clan lost much of its influence. As for Qin Shao, he had cloistered himself within the main household, not even daring to step outside. Even so, the 5 clans' retaliation wasn't over. The 3 corporations aggressively began to take over the markets in which the Qin clan operated, as though they were planning to crush the Qin clan into oblivion. And while the Yun and Chu clans might have turned a blind eye, Qin Zhao's attempt to implicate Yun Bing and Chu Feng had severely offended both clans. As a result, they too began to pressure the Qin clan. Faced with an assault on 5 fronts, the head of the Qin clan began to panic. As the head, he couldn't sacrifice the entire clan's well-being just for his son's life. On the top floor of a certain skyscraper in the city of Liao, the elders and heads of each branch of the Qin clan sat in urgent deliberation. "Head, you have to make a move. If not, the Qin clan will perish." Qin Zhongming's face was stormy. "A move? What move should I make? Shall I sacrifice my son to quell their anger? Who's to say that they'll calm down just because they have my son? And even if they do, will we even have any pride left over? How can we maintain control of Liao if we're willing to roll over on the other 5 clans' command?" Qin Zhongming's words caused an elder seated to his left to start laughing. "In that case, head, shall we expend all our resources and fight to the death with these 5 clans? The Zhou clan has good reason to suspect Qin Shao as the culprit of Zhou Qian's murder, and we can't shield him forever. Now that the 5 clans are cooperating to crush us, head, there's no chance that we'll be able to fight back. Give up on protecting your son. Reputation this, reputation that, what reputation can we maintain when our clan's being smothered to death? Qin Zongming had no refutation for the accusations being leveled at him. The elder wasn't wrong. If the clan were to fall, no amount of reputation would do them any good. However, Qin Shao was his only son. If he were to hand him to the 5 clans, wouldn't it be equivalent to sentencing him to death? How could he bear to do that to his only son? But if he didn't, the Qin clan would be destroyed. He might be willing to accept such an outcome, but the rest of the clan certainly could not. Another elder spoke up. Head, you need to be decisive. The Yun and Chu clans alone would be enough to destroy us, but they're even working in tandem with the 3 corporations. As the head of the clan, are you really going to ruin us all just for your son? We've already demonstrated our resilience by protecting Qin Shao as long as we did, but to shield him further would be the greatest of follies. Head, your decision now will alter our clan's fate. I implore you, think of the big picture. Chapter 30. Cast Adrift. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Don't force me to make a decision now. Let's wait a little while longer. Qin Zongming was forced to make a bitter choice. One option led to grief, and the other to sorrow. How was he to choose between son and clan? How? Head, time's the one thing we lack most. Please make a decision immediately. Your waiting now could well lead the Qin family into ruin. Qin Zongming's response clearly wasn't what the elders wanted to hear, and they began to pressure him again. Everyone gathered at the meeting looked toward him, and Qin Zongming could sense the resolve in their eyes. If he weren't able to resolve this matter immediately, it looked as though his time as clan head would be up. He didn't care whether or not he was the clan head, but if he stepped down, Qin Shao would be in even more perilous a state. His replacement would surely send Qin Shao trussed up for slaughter. Alright, I've made up my mind. My only son, Qin Shao, has committed a terrible sin. For this crime, I hereby declare that he shall be stripped of all duties and obligations to the clan of Qin and expelled from the clan. His life and death shall no longer be the clan's concern. Qin Zongming's face flushed red upon making this declaration, red with anger, red with shame. After all, removing the clan's protection from him would undoubtedly send him out of the frying pan and into the fire. But what else could he do? There was at least still a slim chance of survival if he were expelled, and no chance at all if he remained within the clan. All he could hope for now was that Qin Shao was wily enough to escape with his life amidst this disaster. Head, if you do this, I am the family head, and I've made up my mind. Qin Zongming roared. Despite his compromise, the elders of the Qin family still weren't fully satisfied. However, Qin Zongming still held the authority of the clan head, and he interrupted the elder before he could finish speaking. This punishment, as well as some monetary compensation, will be sufficient to repair our relationship with the Yun and Chu families. The 3 corporations don't have much power or authority of their own, and now that they've tasted a few benefits at our expense, they should know better than to push this matter further. My expelling Qin Shao from our clan allows them to target Qin Shao at will. The fault was his, not our clan's. If they want revenge, they should seek it out from him. Furthermore, from now on, I expect all of you to enforce surveillance on the Wang family. The reason for our losses is all because of that wench from the Wang family, and we'll settle this debt sooner or later. Qin Zongming's words thundered through the conference room. No one dared speak up against him now. In that case, since there aren't any further comments, the matter is settled. Spread the news that Qin Shao fled to avoid punishment from the clan, and that he was expelled as a result. This meeting is over. Qin Zongming was the first to walk out of the conference room. In the Renji hospital in Liao, Qin Shao, who was resting in a ward, suddenly received a message from his wristwatch. Flee. As Qin Shao opened it, a familiar voice entered his ears. The next moment, Qin Shao received the news that his point cards had been frozen, and that he had been expelled from the Qin clan. In a matter of moments, Qin Shao had nothing to his name. It was only then that Qin Shao began to treat this matter seriously. Expulsion from the Qin clan. How could this be? He was the only son of Qin Zongming, the clan head. How would his father bear to expel him from the clan? Who was going to take over the leadership of the Qin family now that he was gone? That audio message instructing him to flee sounded like his father. He replayed the message. There could be no doubt. The message really was from Qin Zongming. That message had been sent from an anonymous sender, which meant that his father couldn't contact him openly. Qin Shao got up and drew the curtains in his suite to see several vehicles owned by the three corporations heading toward the hospital. He had no choice but to confront the likely truth. Although he had heard a few rumors during his stay at the hospital, he believed that his father would have been able to protect him. But 5 days later, he'd found himself unceremoniously kicked out of the clan. He was certain that his father was under tremendous pressure to do so, but he was still quite aggrieved, not toward his father, of course, but the clan elders. His reputation in the Black Steel settlement for the last 2 years had brought a great many benefits for his clan, but the moment something like this happened, those elders had discarded him immediately. But no matter how he felt about the clan, he had no choice but to flee, dragging his bandaged, recently operated dot on hand behind him. Qin Shao wasn't a fool. He knew that the blame for Zhou Qian's death could be placed squarely on him. And he knew what the consequences would be if he were to be caught by the three corporations after the Qin clan's protection was revoked. With his disappearance, the affair of the Venombane Glade drew to a close. All 6 families of the Black Steel settlement had found themselves wearied, if not worse, by the whole mess. Even the Yun and Chu families, which had done the best among the 6, were getting tired of sending all their hunters out to fight. However, they had gained quite a fair bit of profit from their efforts, both on Earth and in the dimensional world, and they couldn't much blame Zhonglai for treating them as pawns in his game. As for the 3 great corporations, with the notable exception of the Zhou family, they had all made some profit as well. However, the Qin family had lost much of its reputation and prestige in the Black Steel settlement, and it seemed as though the 6 great families would soon become 5. Of course, the one true winner was Zhonglai. He had crippled both the Wang and Qin families in one devastating blow. Qin Shaotian was dead, Wang Jianxin had been sent to chaos, and Wang Xiaohua and Qin Shao were left to fend for themselves against those hunting them down. He had soured the relationships between the families, and in doing so, had even extricated himself from any blame. In Zhonglai's suite in the Black Gold Inn, a light clap from Zhonglai's palm, sending ripples of genetic energy out from the point of impact, caused a crack in a massive steel shield. As the ripples grew more intense, the crack propagated, and the steel soon fell apart into a heap of scrap metal within his virtual training environment. Given Zhonglai's past experience with genetic techniques, he had achieved some success with the pinnacle. Grade, Fists of the Silent Sea, in 5 exhausting days of effort. As he had anticipated, this technique was particularly compatible with him, and Zhonglai couldn't have been more pleased with his purchase. Next, he summoned Venombane and began to practice the Boundless Blade. Zhonglai had been a sword master in his past life, and as a sword technique, the Boundless Blade should have been easier for him to pick up. The challenge of that technique, and what gave it its mythic. Grade designation, was authority. 100 masters of the Boundless Blade would generate 100 variants of the technique. Even if the blade work were essentially identical, each master would invoke the authority of the boundless ocean in a different manner, and this difference would subtly affect the technique. It was this feature of mythic grade techniques that made them so challenging to learn. Zhonglai had spent much of the last 5 days dedicated to this problem. With his past life and present dedication, with his large supply and masterful control of genetic energy, on the 5th day, Zhonglai had managed to assimilate his unusual genetic core with the technique, coming up with a version of the technique that was uniquely his. His version boasted a gigantic fish swimming in the ocean of genetic energy that served as the technique's backdrop. The ocean, which had felt somewhat lifeless during the robotic demonstration at the auction, seemed to have gained a measure of subtlety and mystery upon the fish's inclusion. Zhang Lai charged up a blow, then released that energy with a light swing of his short sword. As the blade struck its target, the fish leapt up from behind him, bringing the ocean's boundless strength to bear. The force of the technique leveled a small hill into flat terrain. Zhang Lai exhaled deeply, then left the virtual environment, a hint of exhaustion in his features. The strength of the boundless blade left nothing to be desired, but it also drained him of much of his energy. He would have to save it for a killing blow, his stamina simply couldn't keep up with using it as a regular attack for the moment. Thus ended Zhang Lai's practice regimen. Both the Fists of the Silent Sea and the Boundless Blade were multi-target techniques, and Zhang Lai had certainly managed to shore up his deficiencies. Furthermore, his ceaseless practice and increase to his gene fragments had caused his 9-carp transformation to enter late first stage. His supply of genetic energy had increased yet again, and the pale pink carp in his genetic core was now so detailed that it looked to be alive. Zhang Lai's stats had also undergone a massive transformation. Zhang Lai. A Mortal Life Form Framework. Foundation, LV Max, 9-carp transformation, first form. Carp techniques. Rippling Walk, Novice, 3-wave Crescendo, Novice, Calm Waters, Novice, Fists of the Silent Sea, Novice, The Boundless Blade, Novice, Genes. Basic, 140, Mutated, 100, Superior, 19 Soul Shards. White Grub, Superior, Gale Wolf, Mutated, Blood Ant, Mutated, Pot-Bellied Toad, Mutated, Venombane Scorpion, Superior. He possessed 2 particularly strong superior.grade soul shards and an assortment of genetic techniques, the lowest of which was high.grade. The difference between the Zhang Lai of a few months hence and the Zhang Lai of the present was as heaven and earth. Given just his gene fragments, soul shards, and techniques, he would have been 53rd on the gene leaderboard despite having no recorded fights to his name, and his growth.type framework was still only equivalent to a mortal.grade 1 at present. Of course, Zhang Lai didn't care about this ranking. He had no intention of publicizing his strength, and indeed he had removed himself from the leaderboard months ago. Otherwise, news of his sudden growth would likely have spread throughout the settlement. After packing everything up, Zhang Lai was finally ready to head out of the settlement once again. His next goal was to hunt down more superior.grade lifeforms, as well as to gather the remaining required ingredients for his potion number 2.